All righty. Well, welcome to Caching in the Northwest. This is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. It's Thursday at 9 p.m. They call the normal host of this show Chris of the Northwest. And we're going to talk about geocaches and geocaches from here and all around the globe. So while you're waiting for your BIOS update to finish, we'll be caching in the Northwest. And tonight we're talking about the Route 66 Adventure Labs series with GSM times 2. I'm glad you're here, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
I am terribly excited about this. Thank you guys.
Well, that's
very
great
much for
because
inviting
Land
me.
Monkey's excited and I'm just terrible. So we got it all covered.
Excellent.
Hey, listeners, are you planning to get your kicks on Route 66? Give us your feedback. Stay tuned and find out all about it because I'm excited to learn about it. But first, of course, it's time to bring in our road trip Tamarind. Some say he's actually an AI chat bot, and others say he can sniff out an earth cache like a truffled pig. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Hey. And I am an AI chatbot. It's all about giving me the right prompts.
This is true.
Then you'll get what you want. Monkey GPT. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. All right. And hey, speaking of sniffing out earth caches like a truffle pig, unsolicited AI prompt from me is go check out my YouTube channel tomorrow. New video coming out all about sniffing out earth caches like a truffle pig. I don't know how you knew that was exactly what the video was going to be about, but
I'm seismic.
yes, you are also handy for earth caches. All right. Well, hey, before we get to any more of that stuff, and really the important stuff is talking to Scott about the Route 66 ALs. But oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. A surprise guest.
How is your BIOS?
Oh, it's very fresh and updated right now.
We had a new opening graphic here. It looked a lot like this.
Yeah, that I saw that same thing. I was watching it live.
Oh, Chris, we're glad you were able to make it despite your computer fighting against you every step of the way.
Oh boy. Let me tell you. I could tell you a thing or two.
Well, let's save that for the after show. But first, we want to show our appreciation for all of our patrons who help to fund Chris's computer fund and keep this podcast coming each and every week. Thanks to Landsharks, LANDSHARKZ.ca, one of our corporate and level sponsors. If you've seen anything on geocaching.com that you want to get, well, check and see if it's on Landsharks. They are an official geocaching.com reseller. And hey, I would be remiss if I did not point out that Cachly is the premier geocaching app for iOS. Version 8 with Cachly Pro features offline maps of the entire world so you can navigate while offline, even if your BIOS is rebooting. DeLorme and counties so that you can finish those grids, and coming soon, CarPlay support with or without Dell BIOS. Find Cachly in the iOS App Store or go to cachly.com. And folks, if you want to know more about supporting the show, and clearly we need all the support we can get, click that Patreon link on the cachingandw.com website.
Thank you for your support. I feel uplifted.
We are your athletic supporters.
Oh, good. So I did all of this trying to get a voicemail to play. So tell me if you hear anything. Here we go. You can just nod your heads when you hear somebody else's voice.
Hi, Caching in the Northwest. This is Megan, also known to the geocaching world, RFU for 88. I was on a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about goals, and I announced that I was going to have Going Caching 2024 as my 5,000, and I did it. So I have over 5,000 now, and on my way to 6,000. And for my photo, I got a picture with Brian Ross, so it made it extra special. Can't wait to get on tomorrow night and have a great day. Happy caching.
There you go.
Awesome.
That's
I
awesome.
hope
Yeah.
that was worth it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was worth rebooting your
Mhm.
computer. And I mean,
I'm
honestly,
also on my way to
everything was
6,000.
left in good hands, Chris.
Yes,
Scott was here.
that's right.
That's right.
Yes, I'm also on my way to 6,000.
Mhm.
I'm on my way to like 2,200 first, but you know, but
Eventually,
6,000 is out there.
Yeah, that's a lot of fines. That's fantastic. So congratulations and very much appreciate calling that in. That was
Yes.
pretty cool.
I appreciate the call-ins, and I think Wits End appreciates it more because he didn't have to read it.
Indeed.
I enjoy reading them, but I really enjoy hearing other people read them too.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's different in intonations.
So far, Megan wins the show.
Oh,
Absolutely.
without a doubt.
Definitely not you,
oh.
Chris.
I was gonna say I don't have somebody bringing me beverages during the podcast like Scott.
I prefetch mine.
I put in an order earlier, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you check your phone to see if it went through?
Oh no. Oh, I probably had to pay something. I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that.
Did you order at the wrong location?
Probably.
And Megan's listening tonight, so
Yay.
congratulations on 5,000. You probably already passed 6,000 now.
Probably so. And thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
Indeed.
How did she call
Clearly,
in, by
we
the way?
appreciate it.
Well,
Sorry.
the only way to call in is to call into 253-693-TFTC. That's right. Leave us a comment, ask us a question, or send us your feedback anytime of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingandw.com. It's just not the same as your voice.
No. Voices
Unless
always
you
there.
record that on that smartphone of yours, that app that you have right there, you can record it and then email it right away, right from your phone, where you could be in the middle of Route 66 looking for a blue whale.
I feel like we're going somewhere with that.
Definitely. It was one of the locations.
All right.
I just thought it was interesting. A blue whale in Oklahoma. Isn't that a landlocked state?
That's why this whale is blue. If it
Ever
was
since
the
the
other
flood,
places,
yeah.
it'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
gray.
Too funny.
Well, GSM times 2, I don't think anybody listening to our podcast, you're new to them. I think they know you well. You've been around the caching community. You've made great contributions to the caching community. So welcome back. You have been on an epic journey, and
Yes.
you also are going towards a milestone, towards 6,000, right?
Actually, 6,000 times 5. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
thank you very much. I am very, very pleased to be here and sharing the exploits that my wife and I did so that I could finish Route 66.
Wow. And she allowed you to?
Not only allowed me to, she came with me.
Oh,
And-
no way.
Awesome.
And she's a muggle, but she does
Right.
enjoy Adventure Labs, and she does realize how important Route 66 has been to
Mhm.
my contribution to geocaching.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about that contribution to geocaching? Because it's not something that we can easily overlook.
It really isn't. Well, anytime I talk about Route 66 and my involvement in Route 66, I also always have to talk about KC_11, because KC_11 is the person who came up with the idea of linking Adventure Labs together to create a series. His original idea was he had a couple friends and they had an ALs that they didn't know what to do with. And he said, hey, let's link together some of the Lincoln Highway in Illinois. And then some people in Iowa got a hint, and some people in Indiana got and said, we want to be involved. And then GCHQ got involved, and they created the Lincoln Highway Adventure Lab series, going all the way from New York to San Francisco. I was fortunate to get one of those sections in Utah, and I went up 400 miles from my house, went up, created it, and then on the way home, I was doing parts of them, and then when I got time to head home, I'm 300 miles from home, and I'm like, God, somebody should do this on Route 66. Someone should do this on Route 66. Scott, you should do this on Route 66, and got involved with Gear Guru up in GCHQ. Found myself 8 state coordinators. They did the bulk of the work of dividing the states up into sections, recruiting reliable and task-oriented geocachers, and in 4 months we had the historic Route 66 Adventure Lab series going all the way from Chicago to Santa Monica.
Isn't it quite a thing when the voice in your head knows your name?
It-
It was
it-
just, hey, you could ignore it, right?
right. Yeah. If it had stayed someone, I wouldn't have done it. But and I don't know that I should have a legacy. But if I did, this would be the geocaching legacy I would hope to have. And it was a blast.
Well, it sounds like it. It's quite a significant milestone to hit 30,000 finds. And it sounds like you put a lot. I'm also on the way to my 30,000th find, by the way.
As am I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but it seems like getting all the stars to align, all the planets to align, and getting all those numbers to add up to make that just coordinate just the way you wanted it to, that takes a lot of planning. That doesn't just happen. He's like, oh, look at that. It just happened to be this, Can you share a little bit of your planning process so that you were sure to hit that milestone just when you planned it to be there?
I can, and then I'll share sometime of my little mistake on doing that.
It was a bonus.
That's my job.
It was a bonus, absolutely. So I had done all of the California Route 66 Adventure Labs. And then in May, when Geo Woodstock was going to be in Flagstaff, I'm like, okay, I can do a couple more up to Flagstaff, and I can do one in Flagstaff. Fu Manchu, one of the organizers, actually had one of the Route 66 Adventure Labs in Flagstaff. Oh, maybe I could do a couple more after that, and then somebody said somebody should just do the whole dang thing. Oh, Scott, you should do the whole dang thing. So talked to my wife, came up with an idea of how I could do it in an economic way, and I set out in May to do the whole thing. Had a great plan and was going to do 60 locations a day. That seemed reasonable. And then it just fell apart. It fell apart because the first day out of Flagstaff, at the end of the day, I'd done 50. So I'm now 10 locations behind, 1 adventure behind. And I'm like, okay, how do I catch up? And I don't catch up. I'm just I want to do the experience, not just the numbers. And so that's what I did. I slowed down and came up with a plan. I knew that on a certain date, I had an event already scheduled in St. Louis because I have a niece and nephew who geocache, and I'm like, we're going to have an event there. So my plan was do as many as I could, and when I was half a day away from St. Louis, stop, get on the interstate, and go to St. Louis. And so I wound up with a gap of 86 from the southern Kansas border to close to St. Louis. There was a gap, and I'll complete that someday. And then my wife and I had a discussion and said, hey, let's go out and get those other 96 or 86 adventures. And that's what we set to do. And I'm excited to talk about that.
Wow. Okay.
And you asked about planning for it. I guess I probably should mention that. So I lined it all up so I would have, room to do those. I knew that I was going to do an event. I knew that I was going to get 1 bonus cache. So I made up a plan of these are the 40 some we're going to get on day one, and these are the 40 some we're going to get on day two, and used GSAC and labs to GPX and created a GPX file and made up my plan. And then
And then day one hit.
Yeah.
Actually, day 1 minus 2, I was just kind of fiddling around looking at something or another, and like, how come there's only 4 locations on that one adventure lab there in Oklahoma? And I missed 6. And
Oh.
fortunately, and I had already lined up everything, and fortunately, they were the 6 closest to the Kansas border. So I just needed to add those 6 on, and and then we went ahead, and it was a little rush to do it, but
Mhm.
we got it done.
Were all the adventure labs along Route 66 10 stops?
Not all of them are 10
Okay.
stops. Some people, we wanted interesting locations. You know, there are
Right.
parts of this country that for 36 miles, there's not 10 interesting things on Route 66. We had a couple people who had previously made Route 66 adventures as 5 location adventures. We invited them to join our group, and and so those 5 remained 5.
Okay.
Yep.
There you
Okay.
go. Well, congratulations on the achievement, Scott. That's pretty remarkable, as we've
Mhm.
discussed. With that many fines, or 30,000 fines, well, 30,000 plus, I'm sure by now, under your belt, what would be some advice that you'd give to other geocachers who are newer to the game and perhaps look at a number like 30,000 in awe?
Yeah.
You know, it's really funny because when I first got in the game, my dad said, "How do those people have 1,000?" And I'm like, "I have no clue how they have 1,000." But to new people coming into the game, and this is a little, I thought about this for a while, so this is a little long answer. It's a great time to enter the game. You know, if you're interested in numbers, there's power trails out there, there's geo art out there. There's geo art with adventure labs out there where you can get a lot of numbers very, very quickly. So a good time to pick up numbers. And on the other hand, if you're quality over quantity, this is a great time to get into the game. You know, we have, a lot of geocachers have followed West Virginia Tim's role model of creating good geocaches. There are now some really interesting gadget caches. Um, with this movement to refresh the game board, to take some of those stale geocaches that have been out there getting no favorite points, arch if they go missing, archive them and put out something at least a little bit better, or it might be a case of just archive them and put out something better. And then also with Geocaching HQ, they're pushing a lot of maintenance, and geocaching, the game board is getting better and more interesting. If you're a social person like I am, this is a great time to get into the game because there's more and more events going on. With the 25th anniversary coming up, with block parties, there's going to be a lot of the large events coming on, and
Mhm.
and that should keep people interested. But the number one and number two way to get those numbers is to stay in the game a long time. And to do that, my 2 pieces of advice are: there's many, many aspects of the game. Laugh onto the aspects of that game that you like and enjoy, and do those. And to stay in the game for decades, if those start getting stale, find some other aspect
Yeah.
that you're interested in and keep yourself in. My dad was he was a jogger, and he started jogging when he was 32, and he jogged until he was in his 80s. And every day he would write down how far he ran, where he ran, what his time was, what he weighed. And every New Year's Day, he'd sit and watch the football games and accumulate, and compile those stats. And he would say, if you do something long enough, you will eventually attain big numbers.
Yeah. The Keats 94 says the numbers add up.
Yeah, they do. So so that's how to get the numbers. Do it a long time and have fun doing it.
And have fun, I think, is the important aspect.
Absolutely.
There's so many aspects to this. Find one that you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned a lot of them: block parties, events, just so many cool things. Gadget caches. I think I haven't met anybody yet that doesn't like gadget caches. They're just cool.
Yep.
So there's some fun things to do out there. But we're here tonight to talk about the Route 66 series. So let's jump right into that with as much detail as we can fit in an hour.
All right. Thank you. With Scott yakking away for 5 minutes after every question. so basically I talked about already KC11 and Lincoln Highway. When we were done, we had created 194 locations, 89 adventures along the 2,448 miles of Route 66. Two of those adventures, the people archived them. They didn't live near them. They were having difficulty with them. And then one of them was from Two Guns to Flagstaff, 30 miles, right next to Flagstaff, where they're going to have Geo Woodstock. And I'm like, that we can't have that not there. So I had an account that I was able to get a 5-stage credit. It was a 6-stage adventure, and I just recreated that just recreated it. So right now we have 188 locations on Route 66.
Very cool.
That is amazing. Now I know I did a couple of them around Flagstaff.
Oh, nice.
And they were very well done. I enjoyed them. My wife was with me, and she's not so much into geocaching, but she does like the adventure labs. I think it's got a more universal appeal.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the gateway drug into geocaching, I believe, right?
That's what Gear Guru has referred to it as. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, she enjoys it because you walk up, you discover something, you put in an answer, and then you're done. And they could be easier to find than perhaps a well-hidden geocache, right? But we did some of those along Route 66, learned some of the history, and it was fantastic. I love history, right? Came up to some of these sites. We did the one, I remember the one with 2 arrows, not 2 guns, but 2 arrows.
Yes.
In the ground.
Yes.
There's one left. It was just, but yeah, those stick out in my mind. So how many people have done at least some part of this Route 66?
A lot of people have done some part of it. I have no idea. Certainly with Geo Woodstock there, with 1,400 or however many people that they finally had, a lot of people did. A lot of people did at least the one in Flagstaff. As far as I can tell, about 35 accounts have finished all of it.
Wow.
TW Lar up in your area was the first one to do it, and that was really fun because I was able to meet her. I was putting on a GIF event, and she kind of altered her plans a little bit to arrive at my GIF event, and we were able to together do the last. It wasn't her last one, but it was the last one to Santa Monica, and together. So that was really, really a treat. I have made the effort to go down, and as I know people are doing it, if I can, I'll go down and beat them at the end. And so have had, like I said, I think about 35 people have done the entire thing.
When you think about it, that's really amazing.
Yeah.
They've driven I think you would have driven the entire 2,448 miles to do that.
Even more.
Yeah.
You got to circle back and
Yeah, especially if you're going to do it by yourself and you get lost here and there, and
Mhm.
yeah, and some of the locations are not on Route 66. When we were
Mhm.
making up the standard, it was, hey, try and stay within 2 miles of Route 66. But if there is something of very interest, such as the first oil well
Mhm.
uh, drilled in Oklahoma. Yeah, okay, that's about 4.5 miles from Route 66. Still worth the effort, and it needed to be added.
Impressive.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
say about 35 geocaching accounts have done every location on the
Yep.
24, 48 miles and 188 locations is like 13 miles between locations on average. Some are closer, I'm sure.
You did
But
that
of those
math in your head,
35,
didn't you?
oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. It actually, the average adventure is about 32 miles, which makes it 3.2 miles between locations.
That's good.
So,
That's way
yeah.
more, way more achievable.
And yeah, do not call it a power trail, please.
No, because this actually interests me and power trails don't.
Yes.
Of those 35 accounts, you added your name to that illustrious list this week, didn't you? Tell
I
us about
did.
that.
I did. So I got to add my list to it. Like I said, I had done all of the ones in California, and then I went to do all of them, and that actually, that discussion of that is available on several other podcasts if you want to know about that. But yeah, I went ahead and did all of them. I had the 91 to do, and here last week, actually, my wife and I set out, and in over 2 days did those 91, and was a little bit rushed. I wish we had had at least one, maybe even 2 days
Mhm.
to finish them all, but got to do them all, and got to add it to my list. And the original plan was my 30,000th find, my milestone 30,000 would be the last adventure lab on that. Um, did not want to not do the 6 in Oklahoma, so my 30,000th and 6 was the last one. And all milestones are milestones. It's the first time that you've ever done that number of
Mhm.
finds,
Yep.
so they're all
Yep.
milestones.
Exactly.
Yes. And yeah, just a blast. Um, let's see. I kind of look over my notes here a little bit.
Well, okay. So tell us about the trip.
Uh,
I assume this is the major, the long trip, right? When you left Geo Woodstock
yeah,
going up.
let's talk about the trip in May. So the trip in May, to make it economical, I rented a camper van so that my car and my nightly stay would be one expense. And I just went ahead and started to Flagstaff, and then changed my mind and said, I'm not going to try and do all of these. I'm just going to leave that little gap. And I'm really glad I did. It just made the experience so much better. Um, Probably the one that I will talk about here is going to the Oklahoma City bombing memorial.
Mm.
One of the locations was on Route 66, was a church across from that, and he referenced that there is a very good adventure lab in the Oklahoma City bombing memorial. And I've spent about an hour and a half there, and because it was fascinating, because not only did they honor those people who had died in a very interesting way, they had chairs set up with their names, um, and this row was on the first floor, this row was on the second floor, this
Mm.
row was on the third floor, and so they honored all of those people. They had a wall that survived. The building was built on a hill, so one of the walls was actually against soil, so that one was not destroyed. They left that up, and they have engraved all the survivors who were there, because the survivors did not just walk out of there.
Right.
They suffered also. And then they had another little section to all the people who were otherwise affected, all the first responders, all the family members, all those people. And then they had a section that's dedicated to children. And then one of the more interesting ones, I think the most interesting, when they originally were building the memorial, they put a chain link fence around it, like you would do with any construction site. And over time, people would be hanging up things, hanging up teddy bears, hanging up notes, hanging up cards, hanging up whatever. And all of those things got categorized and put in a museum. Well, after they built the memorial, they went ahead and left 4 sections of that chain link, or put 4 sections of that chain link fence back up. And here, decades later, people are still hanging things on that chain link fence. So that's the best example of taking the time, not just doing it for the numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Experience trumps numbers every time, the chat says.
Yes.
For some people, it does.
Yeah.
And some people, it's the numbers.
Subway Mark says he spent a lot of time at the Oklahoma City Memorial. It was very moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
IHAM asks, is there a specific naming convention for these adventure labs?
Yes, there is. And now all I have to do is think about it.
Okay. So yes, that's all you need to know. You
answered the question.
Yeah.
It's called it's close to Route 66 AL, and then it's the 2 locations, the northernmost city and the southernmost city. So Chicago to Joliet, for example, would be one of them. If the chat I put a link in the show notes. Maybe I didn't. I'll get something put I'll put a link in just a second that shows all of them.
So Scott, I mean, the Route 66 is definitely, as far as I understand, known as one of those old classic highways that in that time when people were traveling, it was known for the roadside attractions. There was all kinds of things people would put, the largest ball of twine, ball of paint, and all that kind of crazy stuff. That's where you would see a lot of this kind of stuff. Were there some of those kinds of places to stop at?
There were some of those places to stop at, but I think my wife and I stopped at the second largest rocking chair. There's a lot of Michelin men still there. They're not Michelin men anymore, but there's still a lot of Michelin men on Route 66. But as the hotels have gone out of business or whatever they were attracting, some of those landmarks have gone out too. And
the world's second largest rocking chair. I love it.
Are there any Burma shave signs along Route 66?
Not very many.
Okay.
Not very many, but there used to be. And
things like the Cadillac Ranch.
Cadillac Ranch is still there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then to answer the question directly, it's called Route 66, Historic Route 66 : space, and then the east or northern city, and then the to the southern city.
Yeah. IHAM found it. Historic Route 66 : X to Y.
Yep. So thanks for asking. And they all have the same graphics, so they're actually fairly easy to find.
Good.
If you're looking for them.
Well, that Bell on the Move asked a question about the graphic. Is there a way to get that numbered T-shirts 1 to 35?
Yeah, thanks for asking. There is. We have website, thanks to one of the people who had completed it, and I forget his name. It's Tom. He created it, and we do have. If you go to Route 66, Route dang, Route 66. 1 second.
Here, I think.
Yeah,
Wits
there
End
you
has
go.
it.
Yeah, thank you, Wits End. Yeah, Route66al.net. That has a lot of information. It has the GPX files. It should have a link to our where you can order the T-shirt. This was fellow podcaster Scott Burks created this design,
Nice.
and his wife Shorty Nitz was actually my Illinois state coordinator.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you met the okay. Brightling says there were several Burma shave signs between Kingman and Seligman, Arizona, or Seligman.
Yes. Yeah. There were a couple of them still out. Well, newer ones. I don't think they were the original ones.
Probably not the originals. Yeah.
But for somebody who's let's say younger than some of the people in this room, within, why don't you tell them what a Burma shave sign?
Well, they were before my time, but my parents, my mom was born in Kansas
Uh-huh.
and moved out to California. I don't know when, long before I was born, and talked about. So they probably drove parts of Route 66 going to Los Angeles back in the day.
Yep.
And yeah, there was a company that made shaving cream, the Burma Shave Company, and they made signs that they would stage along the highway in limerick style or poetic style, where there was just a short phrase, a man, a miss, a kiss, a curve. He kissed the miss and missed the curve. Burma shave.
Oh man, that was perfect.
So they were known for humorous that way, and a lot of people that did road trips back in the day, they didn't have podcasts to listen to, they didn't have DVD players in the back seat. That was the entertainment. You looked for the Burma shave signs and read the poems along the road.
Yep, I was in the back seat at probably about 8 to 12 years old, and we liked the Burma shave signs.
Yeah. Between DVDs, right?
Yeah. Between looking for the ends in the next license plate or some sign. Yes.
Alphabet game. Yeah, I played the alphabet game a lot on road trips that way. So.
I always had to sit in the middle on the back seat on the hump right there
on the
transmission hump.
No footrest, no foot room at all. Yeah,
I was the youngest, and it was that was my spot.
Yep. Yeah.
I never win at the license plate game because I wasn't closest to the window to see them.
Right.
Yep.
Just wasn't fair.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was competitive.
Yeah. So that was. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, for all of the highlights and tourist attractions and things that you did see along the road, did you have any specific highlights that stand out?
This last little trip with my wife, and again, we were unfortunately rushed. We really enjoyed going to some different places. There were a lot of people who love to talk about, met the inspiration for Mater from Cars, and and he was very interesting, very fun to talk to. If we had all the time that we could have, we would have spent a lot more time. We probably would have arrived at the end of the trip without ears, but but that was interesting. I think just for the one highlight, I'll talk about the independent Trails of Tears memorial that an artist put together on his own land, no funding involved. And Trails of Tears, for those who may not know, was when they relocated several tribes. They walked them from Missouri and Illinois to Oklahoma to their new reservations, and there were a lot of deaths along the way. So that's the Trails of Tears, and he had set up a very interesting, very beautiful memorial. that we would have spent an hour or more at. We probably spent about 20 minutes at, and yeah, that was one of the highlights. And there's many, 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 many more.
Wow. So yeah, lots of fascinating things that you came
Mhm.
across. So if
Yeah.
someone's got their curiosity peaked now, and maybe they hadn't heard of this series before. Now they've heard about it, and they're thinking about okay, starting to plan tackling the series themselves. Where can they get more information about the historic Route 66 AL series?
Okay, now that where we're at the show notes, where I can look and say Route 66al.net is our website. Over there, we'll have general information. We'll have the spreadsheet with all the links in it, and there's a map there. There are links to there's the GPX files. The GPX files can be downloaded into your apps, into the many apps that will take GPX files, um, or put onto a Nuvi or any kind of GPS. So those are there. There are links to the previous podcasts. I've had the good fortune of being on several different podcasts, talking about how it was planned, and then my first trip on Route 66, and then this is the one where I'm talking about having finally finished it. So all those podcast links will be on there. And then we also have a Facebook group, Route 66 GC Adventures is a Facebook group that we have about 400 members on there. And yeah, so lots of good information, and a lot of the good resources. You will ask me in a little bit, but I'll tell you now. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me through the GCHQ message board, GSMx2, pronounced GSM times 2. And I'll be happy to provide any information that I can.
Nice. Hey, jumping back for just a moment, I must know, was the Trail of Tears the one in Rubidoux Springs in Waynesville, Missouri?
I believe it was in Missouri. Yes.
And I assume that's French.
Well, Rubidoux Springs. That was a one put on by the city, or I
Okay.
think that's in a park. But this one was just off the side of the road. Most people probably would never notice it unless they were on Route 66 and unless they were following this location.
Okay.
So
I asked you earlier before we started, but I'll ask again for the podcast. Can you really get a feel for what Route 66 was really like back in the day, or has it just all been paved over and so commercialized that it's just it's not really the same?
okay, as far as the road, it's 85% of Route 66 is still drivable as Route 66.
Okay, that's a lot.
It will vary from nicely paved roads. There's a section just before Flagstaff that is dirt. I think the more interesting, for me, the most fun was when Route 66 was right next to the interstate. There's a section of that in Southern California. A lot of the section in Illinois is like that. A number of sections in Missouri are like that, where you're driving down a 2-lane road and you're right next to the interstate. And just the contrast is so spectacular and fun, because you're seeing all the trucks and all the cars, and you're just driving on a road that's essentially a frontage road. So I really enjoyed that section. In Illinois, there's a couple states that have really done a good job of maintaining, Route 66, making it easy to follow. Illinois is one of them. Missouri is one of them. Oklahoma is another one. And in Illinois, it was interesting because as Route 66 became more crowded, they had to expand it. So there's much of the sections in Illinois were 2-lane divided highways or 4-lane divided highways, not limited access, but 4 lanes, which was really unusual. Now that's being used as a frontage road. Um, they've closed down one of them, and that's being taken over by nature.
Mhm.
And then the others you're driving along.
Huh. I kind of feel like I wish I could get a 1950s sedan and drive it in. Yeah,
Convertible.
yeah, convertible.
It would have been fun, and and then the other part of it is, but you also get a feeling for what it was.
Yeah.
And, there is a lot of abandoned gas stations and there's a lot of abandoned motels. But on the other hand, it is sparking up. We're coming up to the 100th anniversary of Route 66,
Hmm.
and some of those gas stations are being turned into, into tourist attractions, into roadside attractions. And then some of the motels are coming back. Some of them have been converted to housing, to apartments, but
Uh-huh.
others are still as motels. And I would really encourage those people who are doing it. And I have nothing against the Hyatt, and I have nothing against Holiday Inn or any of those. But if you can, stay at those old ones.
Yeah.
You're going to find the rates are competitive, if
Mhm.
not really good, and these people are trying to keep Route 66 like
Mhm.
Route 66. So yeah, and I stayed in a couple, and yeah, they're not 80 some years old, and they're not the fanciest places, but they were really had a nice feel to them. But I would also do my research because some of them are kept up well and some of them are not.
I saw a TV special not long ago for abandoned places or something. I forget, but they talked about Roy's Motel and Cafe in Amboy,
Yes.
California. There,
Yep.
that looks like a really nice one.
It is, and it's being operated as a very nice restaurant, and yeah, and a lot of people stop by, and I think that's the thing that really surprised me is what an international attraction this still
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
Our adventure lab would take you to some obscure places, but when I was going or we were going to places that were well known, um, there would be 4 or 5 other people there, many of them speaking either a foreign language or speaking with an American with an accent that lets you know that they were from a different country. And it really is an international treasure that I hope continues to survive.
Yeah.
So Scott, we talked a little bit earlier about some, pro tips you might have for folks who want to, they're new to it and they want to tackle it. But if somebody, anybody who, regardless of their experience level, if someone was like, all right, you've motivated me, I want to take this on, what would be sort of the high level overall advice you would have for people who want to follow in your footsteps there?
I, this isn't in the show notes, but it's really a great hint. Go to that spreadsheet and click on each one of those, and it'll bring up a page that has a QR code on it. Print all of those out, put them in a notebook in the proper order, and that's a very quick way to be able to load your next adventure.
Ah,
Mm.
Yeah, because if you get like in Oklahoma City, yeah, despite the fact that we have graphics and it's easy, even in a list, it's hard to pick them out, or it's easy to pick them out in a list, but you're going through a whole lot of them. If you have that printed out in order, you can go from one to the other to the other.
good tip.
And then I guess another one, again, not in the show notes, is there are sections of Route 66 that don't have internet access. and that's a challenge.
Mhm.
Hopefully someday. It's the most requested feature for Adventure Labs is, would you please let us so that we can do them offline like we can
Mhm.
geocaching?
Mhm.
If they would let us be able to do them offline and we would not need to have an internet access, it would be a lot easier. So I basically had two phones and that way if I accidentally answered a question and it wasn't able to get to the server and I was now locked out of the app, I could go to the other phone and continue on my way. And my rule was don't answer any questions unless I have 3 bars of 4G or 5G, and don't answer any question if I don't have it on 2 devices. But
Mm.
okay, but beyond that, going to the show notes, I did it my way. You should do it your way. You do you. I did me. If you're into the numbers and you want,
Mhm.
844 adventures fairly quickly, you can get them. Uh, or if you're looking for the experience like I did, and especially if you have unlimited time,
Yeah.
good for you, and enjoy month a
Mhm.
month of doing Route 66. But at a minimum, use that read to me feature that's in the app now,
Mhm.
and and let that read to you the initial description instead of hitting start. Read the initial description and then read all of the locations. Geocaching. Many people say geocaching takes you to the best places. Adventure Labs take you to the best places and they teach you something about it if you'll read the description and
Mhm.
take in the information that they're allowing you to, that they're presenting for you. And yeah, definitely do that. Go ahead, Chris. You were going to say
I was going to say, fear the tuba says Scott. I love the way you describe the process.
something.
Indeed.
Yeah. And yeah. And okay, this was kind of like a revelation I had. I was doing Fu Manchu's one in Flagstaff, and it took me to a mansion,
Mhm.
and it's telling me about the architecture of the mansion. It's telling me about the history of the mansion. It's having me look at the mansion and counting windows or something along those lines. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, if this was a geocache, I'd be over there by the split ray fence looking for a bison tube or a
Yeah.
pill bottle. So, and that's why our muggles' wives
Mhm.
can enjoy these, even if they don't enjoy looking for
Yep.
pill bottles and split rail
Yeah.
fences.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So,
What did the camper van help or hinder? Do you think it was a good choice to do that, to have your hotel room on wheels?
it would have been a better choice if I'd been 20 years younger. It worked out fine. I did spend more than half the nights in the camper van.
Mhm.
But it was a camper van in which I was crawling into bed in the back. For a couple of days, I had some little leg cramp issues, and that kind of cut into the enjoyment of it. But yeah, but it worked out. It worked out. It gave me an economic way to stay. I stayed. I think my favorite place to stay was truck stops.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Truck stops because they know that you're camping. Nobody's going to bother you. At night, you can go brush your teeth and other things in a nice clean restroom. In the morning,
Mhm.
you can wake up and brush your teeth and other things in a nice clean restroom. So those worked out well. But I also stayed in some Forest Service campgrounds. I did stay 2 nights in an old rustic, you know, Route 66 motel. I did stay one night at a casino uh, because they have good rates and yeah, and clean beds.
Mhm.
So Yeah, but it did work out. Would I do it again in a camper van? I would consider it, but I might think of some other way to do it, and maybe something other than just a camper van.
Mhm.
But it worked out okay.
We have a lot a lot of comments here.
Okay.
CRS98 says there was a lot of kitsch and abandoned stuff on the section I visited. It was all fascinating.
Yeah.
Speaking of Route 66 and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of the people like the section that I created from twin guns, two guns to Flagstaff. There was this old abandoned house, and nothing special, but the research that was done, that house, in 3 different instances, 5 people were killed in that house.
I think I did that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably did. It was right next to Flagstaff. Yeah. So what did you think, Chris? That kind of like
You read the first one, you go, wow, that's a tragedy. Wait a minute. What? It goes on? And there's another. I remember reading it. I don't remember if I read it out loud to my wife or she read it out loud to me as one of us were driving. And it's like, are you kidding? How can this be?
yeah. And without an adventure lab, that is not one of the hot spots for the people coming
I
from
would have
Europe to
driven
do.
by at 70 miles an hour going, wonder what that was. And off I
Yeah.
go. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
section of Route 66, I remember it well. Every crack, there were long cracks in the pavement and grass coming up through it, at least a foot tall, right? Nature is in the process of recovering this road, but it's a frontage road, Yeah, I felt fine doing about 45. I didn't want to do much more than that on it.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, I go, okay, so if this is, I realize the condition of the road is not as good as it was when it was first built, but this is about the speed they were traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a long trip to go anywhere.
It is a long trip, and when you get on those sections that are really the original Route 66, they're only about 8 feet wide.
They're narrow, yeah.
They are narrow.
Mhm.
And and as I was talking to Jim, if you're in a long line of cars and one of them's slow, or you're following a truck, that it's not like today's trucks that travel very quickly.
Yeah.
It's a long trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The abandoned zoo. I'm trying to remember that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
CRS98 said my favorite spot was the abandoned zoo.
Yep.
Well, GSM times 2, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. We could go another hour talking about just the special parts of Route 66. There is one question I want to ask before we go, and this is from Fear the Tubas. He says it's a Canadian question. Is Route 66 something one could do in winter?
Absolutely. You could do it in winter. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I would probably do it in fall. There's not a lot of elevation, but yes, as you get up towards Chicago and southern Illinois, you are going to run into some snow. South of that, it's going to be okay. There's very little elevation gain except around Flagstaff. So in the winter, you could encounter some snow around Flagstaff.
Yeah. Kansas, Missouri, they can have some serious, storms go through them.
They can, yeah.
So you can. I would pack and, just be careful.
We could do a whole show on being prepared for Route 66
in the winter.
Yes. Yeah. How to survive it. So, but it could be done in the winter, and certainly during the fall.
Well, once again, thank you so much. We look forward to having you on to talk about something else. All the questions that you get when you're on here, it just tells me how much people love you. So
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being an ambassador for geocaching.
All right. Well, something we appreciate is our patrons and everybody who supports the podcast. So maybe as we wrap up here, a thanks to Land Sharks and Cashly, our corporate Denali level sponsors. Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. And Cashly is the geocaching app for iOS. Check them out at cashly.com. And we want to thank our faithful Denali level supporters, of course, Land Sharks and Cashly, but also Cool Cow Cachers and Hawaiian Mile. If you want to know more about supporting this podcast, well, click that Patreon link right over there on the cachingNW.com website.
That's right. Just like Genies did.
and Trexer, who's in the chat.
And Subaway Mark, who led off the chat.
Yeah. And M Nerve,
And J-Car.
Peach of Washington.
CRS 98.
And Limax, who's also in the chat.
And also in the chat and on the video, GSM times 2.
Hey, let's see. How about GeoNav Pro?
And Ackerdoc.
Just Carlo.
Terrible Tease.
And Teus.
B Pendragon.
Korsgat.
Railroad.
LG 9000.
Gas Station Tuna.
Geocaches.
Logwork.
The Kemp Clan.
Green Words.
Butterfly Girl.
Kid Vegas 19.
Skyhawker.
You Talks to Rocks.
MC3 Cats.
West.
Seaback Tribe.
Doramore.
You, Dak.
Just Finding Our Way.
Flagman.
Mountain Bike.
Boomer 365.
GeoBirder.
Team Noltex.
BC Rock Crawler.
And last but certainly not least, Whidbey Island Gal. And Scott, you alluded to it already, but if people wanted to reach out to you, you mentioned they can go to route66al.net for information about the Adventure Lab and to reach you.
GSMx2 on the geocaching message board. I just love that as a communication method.
It's a good one. They designed that well.
Yes, they did.
It's becoming ubiquitous.
Yes.
And folks, thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. So if you like the show, please click the Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. And if you didn't like the show, I say it almost every week. I don't know how you couldn't. Let us know what you want us to talk about. But if you like the vibe, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and leave us a review. Because if you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. Of course, you can call in, like, our caller tonight. Call in to 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us update our BIOS any time of the day or night. And of course, especially 9 p.m. on Thursdays. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingnw.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. The show is produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, Jay Kennedy, and Brian Lang. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2024 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
the after show. Well, let's see. Keith says that Adventure Labs are an incredible tour guide, and geocaching, for that matter, takes you to some great spots.
Seems like somebody has a YouTube channel set up with that as their theme.
Funny.
Somebody does.
In case you were wondering about that particular YouTube channel, very nice segue there. The first episode, this is from Keats 94. The first episode of my Morocco series goes live Saturday. Chefchaouen,
Sure.
Blue City, is the town in the Rift Mountains. That's where you just, get out and play something.
Mhm.
In the north of the country. I found my first African geocache there. Nice. And what else? Keats also says geocaching is more than getting out, or is more than signing a logbook or getting an AL stage. Yeah. How very true. Oops. Let's see. What else do we have? Starcacher has a couple of things. This morning, my virtual rewards geocache was published. It's Toledo Art Museum. And then, oh, that was a FATAS. This one's a FATS. Okay. Then this afternoon, what's he trying to say? Why am I the one reading this?
It's for after the show.
Okay. Then this afternoon, I published my first Adventure Lab series highlighting 5 of my favorite sculptures on the grounds of the museum. I have that AL credit since early 2020.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Now they're much easier to get.
good to use that up.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got here? Is that about it?
Caching Kansas. Whoops, it moved. There it is. Caching Kansas is excited. It's less than 40 hours away. The Halloween extravaganza.
Yeah.
That's GC Alpha Whiskey Charlie 4 Papa.
Yeah. G-Cock C4P.
That's not how I spell cock. There's an L in it somewhere.
Caw.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, let's see.
Chris, could I share something real quick?
Oh, please. Of course, anytime. You're the guest. Please be the guest.
Let's see. I don't have, where'd my chat go? Oh.
I know. I know the exact problem you're facing.
Okay. Anyways, okay. What I'm going to share, maybe someone will type this in. GC Alpha Juliet Foxtrot Kilo Charlie. That's my virtual reward, and it's at the intersection of Lincoln Highway and Route 66.
Oh, neat.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was fun. Casey and 11 and I met there, took a picture, went over to a classic Route 66 ice cream place, shared some ice cream, and that night I'm like, I know where I'm going to use my Route 66 adventure now. Virtual.
It was a virtual reward, right?
It's a virtual reward. Yes.
That's historic because those are 2 of the very early freeways.
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln being the earliest.
Lincoln actually might have been the first highway. Say it's the first mapped highway, because when it was declared a highway, it was going through fields and ruts and no pavement. Or not much pavement except in the cities, and not much pavement west of the Mississippi River. Yeah.
Fun. I saw that we had a new listener that jumped in tonight, wanted to know, is this stream about geocaching? And then asks several questions, and our great listeners answered them.
It sure did. That was great.
That was really good to see. So guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. You are great ambassadors to the sport, and Mega Blocks, welcome. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
The GPX and link files on the website, that's route66al.net, are great to have for sections without cell service. Are those sections well labeled that you know ahead of time you need this?
They talk about it pretty well, that you don't need it. And the 2 sections that are the most difficult are from the California-Arizona border to not Needles. The first big town in Arizona.
Barstow or Kingman?
Kingman, to Kingman. Yeah. Interesting sections, but essentially no self-service along the way.
Some of them are well labeled. If you take the time to read the description before you leave cell service.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Nice. And you've done a show with us probably over a year ago on how to do adventure labs without cell service.
And that all of that information is now worthless.
Oh no. Do we need to
Yeah.
do another?
Essentially now, essentially the information that was presented there is not usable. Uh, the advice I would give now is don't answer the questions unless you have, and I'm just going to say either 5G service or have it on it on two devices, because now if you answer it and it can't get up to the server, you're done.
Mhm.
It's almost as if it's sequential.
Hmm.
So ignore all that advice. It
I
was
did an adventure lab not too long ago and didn't have good cell service. And I didn't realize it, and it was a multi-answer one,
mhm.
multi-choice, and I hit it and it says you can't give the right answer until you get into cell phone range. Oh, that must be the right answer. Okay.
It is, and now then you would have to exit to get into
Yep.
cell phone range. Where before you could, okay, that's not the right answer. I just
Mhm.
make sure that you stay in the adventure lab. But that advice is not relevant anymore.
Hmm.
So if GCHQ is listening and your most requested feature for adventure labs is offline,
An offline mode.
it sure would be nice to be able to do that.
Yeah. Just have that adventure lab open. Then you can drive through all the locations.
Yep.
When you get back to cell, then you can answer cell coverage and you can answer the questions.
And you could, yeah, or
Maybe
exactly.
staying in one of those Keach hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Maybe. The same way that you can do it, geocaching. You can
Mhm.
do geocaching, and you're right. You can't
log
log
offline.
it. You cannot
Mhm.
log
Yeah.
if you don't have cell coverage. Just make it so that we know that the correct answer is, and when we get cell coverage, we can then
Mhm.
answer it for credit. Please.
There you have it. Well, GSM times 2, thank you once again.
Yes.
And folks, thanks for tuning in. And until next week, go out on a road trip and get caching in the Northwest.